Welcome everybody who was here, and then when people that are watching this on when they get the video and they click on this. I'm Rod Zeep, for those of you who don't know, the chief, and I'm the CEO and the founder of the Heritage Institute. Today's webinar is, I'm kind of excited about this. Today's webinar is with Donald D, who I've known for since we started the Heritage Institute back in 2003.
Yeah.
Um, and it's all about the non-traditional assets and so it's Donald D with Rare Coins of New Hampshire, which this is perfect timing. I mean, when you think about what's going on in the market and all that stuff, you have to be like dead to not know that what's happening with price of gold and silver and all of that. So if you've got any questions, put them in the chat and we'll try and watch it there. If we don't have time at the end, we can get back to you if your name is in the chat and give you those. And so let's just kind of dive right in. The topic is fiduciary asset allocations, the strategic role of precious metals and numismatics. Um, and so, well, let's start at the kind of the beginning, Don. You know,
Sure.
why did you get in here? I mean, how did you get into this and into Rare Coins of New Hampshire?
Absolutely. Well, before we begin, Rod, I'd just like to thank you, Lori, and Suzanne very much for inviting me to participate today. Um, I really enjoy the subject matter of expanding your practice, and I'd like to, have I appreciate the opportunity to introduce an asset class to our listeners today that should be included, in my opinion, in many client portfolios. And right now, unfortunately, this asset class is all too often overlooked. So, given forums like this, an educational type of forum, gives us an opportunity to educate people about this asset class. And I think once people become aware of the benefits to their practices and certainly to their clients, I think the message is pretty compelling. But to your question, um, I started here at Rare Coins of New Hampshire about 20 years ago. Um, the firm was looking to establish a presence in the financial services industry, and that was my background. Um, uh, One of the principals of the firm reached out and recruited me, and it's been a great opportunity over the years. We've established some terrific relationships with individual advisors, to be sure, broker dealers, RIAs, portfolio management firms, estate planning attorneys, and insurance firms as well. So it's really worked out very, very well. You had mentioned what brought me into the business. Way back in the dark ages when I graduated from college, um, the economy was in such a state where inflation was quite high. And my initial interest, Rod, was to get involved in finance. And I was interested at the time in the equities side of the business. But as I mentioned, inflation was rampant. And there was a precious metals firm in downtown Boston that was hiring at the time. So I thought I'd throw my hat into the ring, and lo and behold, they hired me on the spot. And this has been the only industry that I have been involved in my entire working career, and it's been a really great ride. Um, Had an opportunity over the years to meet some people, which I'm very I, I I hold in high regard. They're very, very well respected. Um, Had an opportunity to travel. We've done some business in Europe. I was in Saudi Arabia for a while, which was quite an experience. There was a financial advisor from the States here who happened to work with um, American citizens and some British employees as well at Saudi Aramco. So I had an opportunity to go over there and conduct some business at Saudi Aramco, and it's just been a terrific opportunity, and I've enjoyed this industry very much. There isn't a day that goes by that I don't learn something new, and it's a very dynamic and very compelling marketplace that people are just, I think, now are beginning to understand and appreciate.
I think that's really true about understanding and appreciating. When I've talked to people about this over the years, there's a lot of times when you talk about this concept and
Yeah,
they go, it's an asset class? I mean,
yeah,
it's like they think of it in terms of, you got to go buy some gold or silver and hide it somewhere,
right,
in case the whole world goes down. But they
right.
don't think of it as a true asset class. I mean, it's part of what you should have in a portfolio, and then you'll get into that a little bit later. But it is, as if you've got to have a diversified portfolio, this is part of the game.
No question about it. No question about it. And I think that message has started to become a little bit more clear
Yeah,
over the last couple of decades. Advisors, to be sure, investors certainly are beginning to understand all too well the value that owning precious metals and tangible assets bring to the stability of their overall investment portfolio.
yeah,
We're certainly not suggesting that clients allocate an exceptionally large percentage of their portfolio in this area, but we are certainly advocating that a certain percentage of a client's portfolio needs to be in this area as a safe haven and as an insurance policy, if you will, against financial assets that are coming under pressure.
I'm chuckling a little bit because I had a guy that I met at a conference, and he said, I know you know some of this stuff, and he said, should I get rid of all my stocks and buy just gold? I
Yeah,
said, I know a guy that sells gold and silver, and he would say no to that.
that's true. That's true.
Yes, you need to have some, but this isn't an end all be all. So,
That's
um,
right. That's right. I mean, there's room for all different asset classes, and certainly room for tangible assets. It plays a very important function in the overall performance of a well diversified strategy.
yeah, yeah. So let's talk about now. I mean, now we're in that really high risk economy and all that. Talk a little bit about it, especially now. I mean, there's been other times where it wasn't as big a deal,
Yeah.
but right now it really is vital.
No question about it. I would like to, kind of back up a bit and tell our viewers a little bit about our firm and what makes
Okay.
us unique. As you had mentioned at the beginning of our discussion this morning, um, I have worked with you and members of the Heritage Institute for a long time now, and it is provided me with a great many opportunities. Um, we've worked with people from Virginia Tech University, for example. There was a client of ours who had gifted some funding to Virginia Tech. We were brought into the picture to kind of evaluate the metals and coins and so forth that were going to be gifted. Um, Utah Valley University,
Yeah.
one of Heritage Institute's members, very active with UVU. Similarly, had a client who gifted some metals to UVU. We were brought in to evaluate and so forth and facilitate that. Um, we're very much involved with the Gettysburg Foundation. Um, and we've been approved by many broker-dealers, RIAs, portfolio management firms, and estate planning attorneys pretty much nationwide. And essentially what we do here is we design tangible asset portfolios, working with our advisors and investors. We custom design tangible asset portfolios for our clients. In addition to that, we manage our clients' portfolios. We provide updates periodically on the liquidation value. We liquidate clients' portfolios. We appraise coins as well. So we pretty much get involved in the entire picture from beginning to the end. You had mentioned, the current environment, and we talked a little bit about the perception of the metals and tangible asset markets recently, but I think that perception has changed substantially in the last 2 decades. Essentially, it's become recognized as a highly liquid and uncorrelated asset. So it has its place in a investment portfolio. Precious metals, gold in particular, has had an annual return of over 9% since 1971, when we went off the gold standard. And it's a comparable return to equities, but it has certainly outperformed bonds and commodities. And most importantly, as everybody is learning now, it provides a safe haven during times of high risk. And the history has been outstanding of generating positive returns in good times as well, because it does have that consumer demand, consumer base also. So it's kind of a double-pronged benefit, investment appeal, and a consumer appeal also.
Yeah, I was just thinking about when you said UVU. For those of you who are watching this and you're a professional, an advisor, either professional for financial or nonprofits or whatever, one of the guys who was talking about that brought him into UVU, I talked to him later and I said, "So how did it go?" And he said, "He made me look good." And from that point on, every time I saw him, he would be like, "Okay, this is why I use him, because he makes me look good," which is, you got to know that when you're bringing in somebody that isn't with your firm, so.
That was a great experience, Rod. Not only we were able to help out and benefit the university, but subsequent to that, as a result of their experience, they brought me back and invited me to lecture at their business school.
Okay.
And which was a great experience. Those students were just outstanding. Everybody was so engaged. They asked some great questions, and it was a terrific opportunity. I enjoyed it very much.
Cool. All right. So I think next slide. There we go. Oh, no, keep going.
Yep.
We've been there.
How about one more, Suzanne?
Sorry, Suzanne, we just started talking.
And one more, maybe?
One, yeah.
There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. This is pretty much where the rubber meets the road right here. We all know that we're currently living in a very high risk environment. We're talking about a $38 trillion national debt. We all know about the economic issues, global economic issues. geopolitical issues. And as a result, I think there's an overall sense of uneasiness that we can all see. And because of that uneasiness, there is a heightened demand for safe haven assets. We all know that gold and silver and other metals, to a lesser extent, have performed very, very well over the last several years. But essentially, several years ago, a gentleman by the name of Harry Markowitz, who was a Nobel laureate in economics and actually the father of modern portfolio theory, defined the importance of precious metals and gold in particular this way. And this pretty much sums it up. The function of gold in a diversified investment portfolio, and I can expand that to include precious metals in general.
Mm-hmm.
The function of gold in a diversified investment portfolio is to serve as a defensive asset class. The appreciation of gold can be expected to be proportionate to the depreciation in financial assets during periods of economic, financial, political, and military turmoil. That's pretty much it. And that pretty much explains the appeal that tangible assets have right now, given the current economic and geopolitical environment. As we had mentioned earlier in our discussion, in my opinion, tangible assets, that asset class, is a vitally important asset class that should be included in certainly most clients' investment strategies for reasons such as this. It complements all of the other asset classes that a financial professional is likely to recommend. Right. We're certainly not suggesting here that, again, tangible assets should take the place of other asset classes that are also equally important in the overall vitality of an investment strategy. But what I am definitely suggesting is that tangible assets need to be included to complement those other asset classes and perform well as they are right now when financial assets are under pressure. But that's pretty much the function that tangible assets play in an investment portfolio.
Yeah. Remember, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the next slide, Suzanne, kind of reaffirms what I've been saying. Right. Silver, for example, in 2025 was the #1 performing asset class, appreciating over 140%. Gold was up over 64%. Since the beginning of this year, gold is up about 6.29% or so. I know we've seen some fluctuation within the last several days, but gold has performed exceptionally well since the beginning of this year, again, as a function of what's going on economically and geopolitically. Next slide, Suzanne. Sometimes during my discussions, people ask, well, I know that the tangible assets have been performing very well of late, but are we in a bubble? And right. My response is, no, we are not. As a matter of fact, if you look historically at the performance of precious metals, you will see that precious metals, gold and silver in particular, have a very impressive track record of appreciation going back many years. Here's a graph, for example, of 10-year gold. Its high point naturally was this year in 2026, in January of 2026, when when the spot price was slightly over 5,000. In January 2016, it had a spot price of $1,117. That's a 348% appreciation in that 10-year period of time. Perhaps even more impressively, silver topped out recently at a high of over 100 in January of this year. Back in January in 2016, it had a low of about $11.94. That's up 769% in 10 years. If we look at the next slide also, Suzanne. Well, it's actually, I was a little bit ahead of myself. As I mentioned earlier in the presentation, in addition to the 10-year track record, as I mentioned, since 1971, when we went off the gold standard, gold has appreciated slightly over 9% per year during that period of time, certainly surpassing bonds and commodities, and probably on par with equities as well. This is a very important subject that we really have to dive into. What we are discussing here today is what I call the unencumbered ownership of precious metals, meaning the physical possession of precious metals. We are not talking about paper assets. Unfortunately, there are some broker-dealers out there these days who only allow their advisors to get involved in paper assets, thinking that it is a more conservative approach for their clients to take. In fact, if you do an analysis, it's just the opposite. It's estimated that there are approximately 250 to 380 paper ounces of silver backed by 1 ounce of physical. Similarly, it's estimated that there are about 200 to 250 ounces of paper gold being traded for 1 ounce of physical. And when I say paper gold and silver, I'm talking about items, financial assets such as futures contracts, options, swaps, CFDs, ETFs, and other financial instruments. Many investors believe that when they get involved in these paper gold transactions, that they're actually buying gold and silver, when actually what they're doing is they're just buying exposure to its price via shares. But the problem is that some investors believe when they get involved in these paper assets that somewhere, somehow, there's some gold with their name on it that's located elsewhere. And that just is not the case. What they are investing in is not gold or silver. They are investing in shares to its price that's being offered to them by these different financial instruments. The advantage of owning physical precious metals are plentiful. There's no counterparty risk. And clients take true ownership. Essentially, with paper metals, what clients are getting is a claim on metals that are allegedly owned by some of these financial institutions. With physical, they are getting the asset itself. With the physical approach, it provides clients with what they're looking for at the outset, and that is a safe haven. They're looking for protection from systemic risk, like market shutdowns, or brokers going dark. And there's another benefit as far as privacy is concerned. With paper, there's full privacy just doesn't exist. With owning the physical, there is a certain degree of privacy and confidentiality. There are no management fees, and again, counterparty risk is number one. With paper assets, there's no direct ownership of metals. There's a question about redeemability. I know that there are some ETFs out there that say that they are 100% backed by metals. But clients believe that because that is the case, they can redeem their investment for metals in return. And if you read the fine print, you will see that that is the case some of the time. Usually the minimum redeemability for ETFs that do have physical backing is a minimum of 400 ounces of gold and 1,000 ounces of silver. So unless you have millions of dollars allocated into the gold market, you're not getting any redeemability at all. There's opaque transparency and liquidity risks during derivative blowups. So if you take a real good, hard, deep dive into the differences between physical possession of precious metals and paper assets, you will see that certainly the safest approach, as I see it, is physical possession. Nothing beats the real thing.
Yeah.
If we go to the next slide, Suzanne, you will see also that after the financial crisis in 2008, when banks found themselves holding assets that proved to be illiquid, there was a banking council that took place in Basel, Switzerland. That's referred to as Basel III, International Banking Supervision. And during that conference and subsequent meetings thereafter, the Basel III Banking Conference deemed physical gold as a tier one high quality liquid asset. What does that mean? A tier one asset is as it is defined by Basel III, is an asset that has 0% liquidity risk with deep global liquidity. And that is certainly the case as it applies to physical metals. As I mentioned before, there's no counterparty credit risk. It's had a proven performance during systemic financial stress. It's not subject to foreign risk, whereas paper gold, ETFs, unallocated accounts, and derivatives do not qualify for that high quality liquid asset, tier one asset. So there is a very distinct difference between allocating into paper gold or paper silver than physical. And by far, in my opinion, the physical approach is significantly more conservative approach than the more aggressive and risky paper asset. Next slide, Suzanne. Essentially, to sum up, the function is tangible assets allow investors to focus on what's important to them. And that is accumulating wealth while also protecting themselves while financial markets falter or are under pressure. And that is pretty much what is going on right now. And that pretty much explains the demand and the appreciation, significant appreciation percentages that we are seeing for tangible assets these days. The next slide, Suzanne. This is a great one. So what happens when someone inherits non-traditional assets? Next slide, Suzanne. As I had mentioned earlier in our presentation, and Rod had touched upon it as well, our firm performs many functions for advisors and their clients. One of which is an appraisal service. When someone inherits non-traditional assets, precious metals, numismatic coins, sometimes, unfortunately, investors, clients don't know where to turn. They have no idea what the value of these items happen to be. We here at Rare Coins of New Hampshire have a team of precious metals and numismatic professionals who are very, very well known in the financial services industry, to be sure, and the precious metals and numismatic industries as well. So we have people looking to us all the time to appraise metals and numismatics. I had a situation not long ago in Florida. It was very interesting because a client had reached out to us explaining that this individual's father had just passed away. And to the best of their knowledge, to the best of the family's knowledge, he was an avid precious metals investor, but they couldn't quite get a grasp on the value of his holdings. The financial advisor involved really wasn't very helpful because in this particular case, he was not able to engage in this asset class because of broker-dealer restrictions. So, as it turns out, the son of the individual who had just passed away had a friend of his from college who just entered the financial services business. And he affiliated with a broker-dealer from Missouri, whom we have a proprietary relationship. This broker-dealer had done their due diligence on our firm, and we have been working with them for quite some time. So the son's friend went back to the broker-dealer to compliance. Compliance referred this case to us. We started our search by asking a few probing questions like, can you give us an example of a few of the coins that were in your father's collection? So a short while after that, I received an email with a list of about 12 coins that the son had identified that were in his father's collection. All 12 of which were extremely rare and extremely valuable. Um, got in contact. I explained the rarity and the value of the coins to the son and the new financial advisor and family members, and we had a great conversation. And I enjoyed the family very much, and I think they appreciated the information that I provided to them, because not long after that conversation, they said, "Oh, by the way, we have some additional coins here. What do you think of these?" And like the first group, they were all very, very rare, very, very valuable. Um, a couple of members of our team and I took a flight down to take a good hard look at these individual coins. And at that point in time, the family told us yet again that there are some additional items here that we would love to have you take a look at. It turned out that this individual owned multiple safe deposit boxes in 3 different banks in South Florida. The family gave us access to those safe deposit boxes. And I'm telling you, Broad, it, it was like looking at King Tut's tomb. It was unbelievable. It turned out that the collection, the portfolio of both precious metals and numismatic coins exceeded $17 million. And the first financial advisor had no idea that this even existed, because this asset class was not on his radar and it wasn't being discussed. So I think that's a pretty compelling story, that that shows why this is a subject matter that needs to be discussed on a regular basis with all of your clients. And I am quite certain that as advisors do start engaging in this conversation, they are going to find out that some of their clients, if not many of their clients, are already allocated into this area, with or without the knowledge of their advisor. The problem sometimes comes about when investors feel compelled to allocate into this asset class, into metals, into numismatics, because they're very concerned about what they're seeing going on now, economically and geopolitically. As I mentioned at the beginning of our discussion, it's a very uneasy environment these days. It's a very high-risk environment. Unfortunately, as I speak with some of the clients that I subsequently have an opportunity to engage with, unfortunately, some of those clients who cannot rely on their financial advisor for guidance in this area act on their own. And that's when problems result. Usually the scenario is that the client will immediately go online and they will try to look for gold or silver or platinum or palladium or numismatic coins at the lowest possible price that they can see that is being advertised online. And although pricing is an important part of the equation, it's certainly not the only piece of the puzzle. And that's where people get in trouble. Unfortunately, I've seen cases where clients act on their own. They go online, they acquire coins that are, number one, out of market favor.
Mhm.
They acquire precious metals that are very esoteric and not readily tradable. I've seen cases where investors have acquired precious metals that are physically impaired. And I've also seen cases where clients have acquired metals and coins that are counterfeit. So um, this this can be an extremely profitable asset class, but it must be done correctly. Um, our firm has earned a reputation of which we're very proud in the financial services arena. One of the reasons that I continue to have the ability to be a strategic relationship with the Heritage Institute because of our relationship of professionalism, knowledge, and ethics, and so forth. But we have been sought out by a few legal firms who pursue cases where clients have been wronged in this area, essentially clients acting on their own to provide technical expertise to help resolve some of these cases and help consumers. But my point is, as I mentioned, this can be a very, very profitable and productive, important asset class. But like other asset classes, it must be done properly. And that's one of the many values that I think our firm brings to the table. We allow investors, we allow advisors, we allow broker dealers, RIAs, attorneys to safely and effectively engage in this area. That's where the rubber meets the road. That's one of the big values that we bring to the table.
I think the other thing you talk about when you get in there in this particular area, especially and when the market gets really wild, is the number of people who go because some movie star or somebody with a big
Yeah.
name, I've got this, and they jump into
Yes.
it. And I've only been involved in two of those cases, and
Yes.
in both of those cases, I think they paid probably at least 50% or more
Yes.
than they
It's
because
true.
of the
It's
endorsement.
true. Unfortunately, some of these egregious cases that um, come to our attention are really they'll tear your heart out
Right.
because some investors really get taken advantage of, and there's no reason for it. Um,
Yeah.
if this is done properly, and with guidance um, and so forth, hopefully from their financial professionals, all those problems are mitigated.
Right.
All those bumps in the road can be avoided if it is done properly. And again, that's one of the values that we bring to the table.
Yeah. And have for a lot of years.
Um, the next slide, Suzanne. Yeah, difference between precious metals and numismatics. Um, as I had mentioned earlier in the presentation, our firm is known for our technical expertise in both the precious metals and the numismatic arenas. And we're also known for our consumer protection practices. We're members of all major consumer protection organizations in the industry. Um, but sometimes people are unfamiliar with the difference. What's the difference between a numismatic coin and a precious metals coin? What's the difference between a 1 ounce gold American Eagle and a $20 gold piece? And the difference is essentially that the value of precious metals depends exclusively upon the weight of that metal in whatever intrinsic metal that happens to be from. The value of that precious metal will rise or fall depending upon the spot price of that metal at any point in time. That precious metal does not have any rarity factor involved in it at all. On the other hand, they're what are called numismatic coins. And in many cases, not all, but many cases, numismatic coins are also minted of a precious metal, gold or silver. The difference with numismatic coins is that in addition to the intrinsic value of the metal, the coin also has an added rarity factor associated with it. Generally speaking, numismatic coins can be more conservative than precious metals. They are not quite as volatile as metals can sometimes be. If the spot price of gold goes from 5,000 to 6,000, it's likely that the $20 gold piece, which is about 0.96 ounces, the value of that coin will rise as the spot price of gold goes up. If, however, the spot price of gold goes from 5,000 to 4,000, the downward pressure on the numismatic coins is less because of the added rarity factor that's associated with them. This is an example of a coin that's in one of our clients' investment portfolios, for example. 1795 early $5 gold piece, current population of 3 in existence. It's a very, very valuable piece. But numismatic coins may be suitable for some clients and not suitable for others. And as I mentioned earlier, working with our financial professionals, we custom design investment portfolios that best suit clients' needs, whether it be on the precious metal side of the street, whether it be on the numismatic side of the street, or perhaps a combination of both. We take into consideration risk tolerance, certainly the age of the client, the time horizon, the likely time horizon of the investment, and again, custom design portfolios for our clients. But there is a distinct difference between precious metals and numismatics. Precious metals have been the darlings of the investment field over the last several years. Numismatics have kind of taken a back seat as gold and silver have just rallied precipitously. But for some clients, there's a need for numismatics as well, and we can provide guidance and expertise in both those areas. Next slide, Suzanne. Right, and this is an example of an area in precious metals that we feel very strongly about. Gold and silver American Eagles. American Eagles are arguably the most frequently traded forms of precious metals in the open market. They enjoy a very steady, healthy demand. They are very liquid, very easily disposed of, and usually are liquidated at higher levels than some other forms of precious metals. This brings me to another point. Sometimes advisors and certainly investors feel that an ounce of gold or an ounce of silver is an ounce of gold or an ounce of silver is an ounce of gold, that everything is the same. And that is the farthest from the truth. The reality is that some forms of precious metals, like American Eagles, for example, fall into the recognized and readily tradable, frequently tradable category. heavy demand, very liquid. There are some other esoteric areas in the precious metals area, like gold bars or silver bars. Um, there are some esoteric areas in precious metals with coins coming from other countries that on the surface have an appeal to the novice eye because usually they trade at lower levels than traditional assets. But the problem is at time of liquidation, they're usually trading at deep discounts from traditional assets because they are not traded all that frequently. Right now, for example, we try to guide our clients away from gold and silver bars if possible. There seems to be an influx of counterfeit gold and silver bars coming primarily from China that has infiltrated the market over the last 10 years or so to the point where the appeal of gold and silver bars isn't nearly as strong as the appeal of more traditional assets and again, trade at very, very deep discounts. But all of these factors come into play, again, when we custom design portfolios for our clients. As I mentioned earlier, we manage our clients' portfolios. We can provide a instant liquidation evaluation at any point in time for our clients. We appraise coins, as I had mentioned, and we are certainly there for the assistance with liquidation as well. I know we're running a little bit short on time, but if I have maybe the next slide, we can kind of conclude. Essentially, I hope I've piqued your interest today in this asset class. I hope I've done my job in demonstrating to you the value that including tangible assets can bring to a diversified investment portfolio. Generally speaking, we recommend somewhere between 5 and 15% of a client's investment assets into this asset class. That percentage is not written in stone. That certainly depends upon the client's individual circumstances, but that's a general guideline. Again, track record, tangible assets deliver returns when other assets falter, which is kind of what we are experiencing right now. And as a result, they're an exceptional portfolio diversifier. American Eagles, U.S. numismatic coins may be private and confidential between buyer and the seller. The next slide, Suzanne. They're highly liquid, intangible. Investors own tangible assets outright and can be traded 24/7 worldwide at low price spreads, free of credit and counterparty risk, and again, very, very liquid. According to the Banking Council, gold, physical gold, 0% liquidity risk. And tangible assets can be gifted to individuals or organizations, as I had mentioned, Virginia Tech, Princeton University, Johns Hopkins University, other colleges and high schools that we've been involved in over the years. I will say this. I am always interested in speaking to compliance officers at broker-dealers nationwide. We have several broker-dealers right now with whom we work, some as a proprietary product. In some cases, broker-dealers work with us and allow their advisors to engage in this asset class as an outside business activity, and sometimes, depending upon the individual financial advisor, as a one-off as well. But if you have an interest and you would like me to speak with your compliance officer at your broker dealer, I'd be more than happy to do that to see if we can get you engaged in this asset class. Um, at that, I would like to thank everybody very, very much for giving me an hour or so of your very valuable time. Rod, Lori, I can't thank you enough, for all of your help and for inviting me to participate today. And Suzanne, you're the best. Thanks a million for all of your support. You've been the greatest.
For our side of the coin here, as they say, um, you know, I can speak for this like in real time, because my dad was one of those that bought silver and gold, but he bought it in bags of silver coins and then he buried the bags. And we're sure that we didn't find all of those bags when it was all said and done. When he passed, my brother, who's a financial advisor, and I became the trustees for my mom. And this is one of the first things we did was get a hold of you, because
Yeah.
we knew that this was what, dad wanted and what she wanted. She knew all this stuff, but we didn't want to have them buried in the backyard anymore. So that's, so we,
It's a good
and
idea.
yeah, it was a good, and her especially, because she can look at the statement that she gets from the broker now, and she won the ones that you send out, and now she knows what it is, as opposed to she knows that there's a bear, somewhere there's there's a bag of silver coins that is buried, but we don't know where it is or what it's going to cost, what it's worth. So I appreciate this. So then, okay, so looking forward here for you guys, we've got the training are coming up now. We're into 2026, which is great stuff. And mark your calendars if you haven't already for May 4th through 6th, which is going to be the third annual Mastering Multi-Generational Wealth Conference. And we're going to be in Frisco, Texas this year. And early registration now, you're gonna have to help me here, Suzanne. Early registration ends on February 23rd.
Yes.
But the theme of the conference is prosperity by design beyond the great wealth transfer. And when you think about it, and it's about intentional strategies for preparing heirs and navigating the great wealth transfer. And what's interesting about all of this stuff is most people, when they talk about the great wealth transfer, they're talking about just the money. And this is a human issue too that's going to be happening as there's this big shift from one generation to the next. And so we'll be covering both sides of that in the conference. So if you got any questions about that, you can look at the website or send us an email and we'll be able to follow up with that. And then Suzanne will put this on the Knowledge Vault and then on our website for people. You can come back and look at later if you didn't get everything that you wanted to get in now. You can come back to it later. Suzanne, is there anything else I was supposed to follow up on here?
I think
I
you
don't think
covered
so.
everything.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, Donald. It's been great, and
Well,
like I
thanks
said,
a million. It's always nice to see you. I value our business alliance with the Heritage Institute over the years. It's been great. Met a lot of terrific people, and I look forward to the next to the next 20 years.
next 20 years, yeah. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rod.